Yeah, well, Art was a PR guy, an ad man from the get-go. And, like you say, talk about a different world. You need to be a billionaire today to buy an NFL team. Art Modell bought the Cleveland Browns for $3 million of borrowed money.
It wasn't even his money.
And,
it wasn't his money.
Yeah,
he only used like 100.
Obviously, it was his only source of income, and not unlike the other kind of first generation owners from Wellington Merritt, the Rooneys, and those people. They weren't. Fabulously wealthy men before they owned NFL teams. Some of the owners were, of course, the Lamar Hunts of the world and people like that. But Art became even by the time he left Cleveland, he was one of the very few owners in the league that had the NFL as his primary source of income, as opposed to something else, as opposed to a toy to play with in his spare time.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it's a different world. Those are some things I look back. And again, with that stadium, I will make that argument that the city of Cleveland is definitely shorting itself on having that asset there and not taking advantage of it, But, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the opposite. See, I think it's the opposite of the Indians' problem, too, is the Indians can't do that, and I know they would. They are thrifty for every dollar. But the problem is their season is during the good weather, and their off season is when an open air stadium doesn't work out well, except for hockey. That's about it in the wintertime. Meanwhile, the Browns season is during the bad months, and the time that you don't use the stadium is when it's beautiful outside,
Yeah, that's true. Although the Indians did make their run at having the winter playland or whatever it is.
I loved that idea. I love that idea,
I don't know if they're discontinuing that, or are they going to continue to do that in the winter?
Snow Days is gone. They did that one time, and they didn't come back with it, man. I thought the idea of the snow days and doing a Frozen, I thought that there was a serious tie-in. I'm thinking, why doesn't Dan Gilbert and the Dolans get together and do a Monsters game outdoors? You know what I mean? Just like they do the NHL one, because they did the one with OSU in Michigan, and that thing was cool, man. Like, the visuals of that, I don't know if you went to that, but the visuals of that thing was awesome. The outdoor game with the snowing just enough to give you that really cool thing. And I said, man, I don't know why the Monsters can draw, 15K on their own for a regular game. So something like this would be, but nobody ever put it together. I always wondered why the Monsters didn't jump on that or reach out to the NHL in general. Like, I thought maybe the Monsters doing a doubleheader outdoor thing with an exhibition game with the parent franchise from Colorado, but just ideas.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
I
had. They could, and they're doing it too with collegiate hockey as well.
Yes.
With some outdoor games. And I'm sure that if you worked hard at it, you could probably get the Buckeyes up here to play a college hockey game.
Well, they did.
In a venue like that, and yeah, it's been done. But there's a lot of opportunities to show college hockey. Maybe a combination Monsters plus an NCAA game or something might be a nice idea.
Yeah, but my point is that they would love to have 3 months of beautiful weather where they could schedule more Brad Paisley concerts and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And continue to make that ancillary money. That's anyways. But
of course that was the argument at the get-go for building a dome stadium in the first place.
Of course.
You could have a dual-use facility, and you could have the Republican National Convention inside of it coming up in a couple of years, but. For obvious reasons, we didn't put the lid on Cleveland Browns Stadium.
Nope.
So it gets used 10 times a year plus about 2 or 3 others when they play a high school football game there or something.
Hey, man, it's fine. We're going to say that's perfect. We're talking about one stadium. We're talking about the other one. The Indians play in that stadium we're talking about. So let's move right over a couple blocks from downtown. Now we're up over here to Progressive Field. Let's talk a little bit about the Indians before you and I jump into some Buckeyes. It's been a few days, and they did play a little better than 500 since the last time we talked. They're 5-2 in their last 7 games. I think these next 9 games, I know it sounds crazy to say it, out of a 162-game season, I think these next 9 games define the season, what you do before you hit Kansas City and Detroit.
Yeah, every time we talk, it seems like, the most important game in series is the next one. But it's real.
It is when you're running out of games.
I don't disagree with you a bit. The best thing to come out of the weekend for me, Jerry, was Carlos Carrasco. because it has implications so far down the line. It was just so encouraging to have that second streak, and I don't want to put too much stock in it, and I don't want to
2 in a row.
Jump right on that bandwagon. But boy, I tell you, that the young Indians, those young Indians, going into the next year, I just feel so much better about a starting four, a front four in the rotation, and you can, sure, McAllister's still a question, and so are some other guys, but I don't have any problem going into next season with Kluber, Bauer, Salazar, and Carrasco as my top four starters. You're going to pick up some pitching. You're going to sign some pitching or make a deal for some pitching or whatever, and that's not sufficient. But a young top four starters that I just named, I feel pretty good about that going forward. All four guys have middle to front of the rotation stuff, and they're all young, and you've got control of them for several years. So I just think if they can finish the season strong, I really do think that we're starting to think about 2015. I mean, what we thought the Indians needed to do, Jerry, to come out of the All-Star break and really grab a hold of something and make themselves contenders is instead what the Kansas City Royals did. We both had to do the same thing. We're both relatively close. The Royals did what the Indians had to do, and that was come out of the break and hit a hot streak and play well and put some distance between you and the rest of the division and shorten up the gap between them and the Tigers. They did it. The Indians didn't, and I think we're running out of time unless that hot streak happens awful quickly.
Well, but again, Mike called me an eternal optimist. I said, no, I disagree. There's very specific reasons why I think that the Indians are still in this thing and going to be in this and have every good of a shot to win it. Chase down the wild card, at least, is what I'm referring to. Getting a playoff spot by hook or crook. And, I mean, I went through them at the beginning, and I'll say it now with you on the phone. Number one, it's the fact of they have the fourth best home record in baseball, and they have more home games remaining than away. They also have one of the weaker schedules remaining, and just the way it all shakes down. And plus, no team, just like you say, Kansas City had a little hot streak there. They may have switched places with Detroit, but the Indians are still the same distance from them. They're still the same distance from the wild card. Nobody in front of them in the wild card is happy to move ahead either. Everybody is just staying right where they are. And the fact that the Indians have winnable games, a ton of them, against bad teams, I mean, pretty much Detroit and Kansas City, those are the teams left that you play that are good. I mean, you have a game against the Angels, and I know, Chicago's only 7 or whatever games below 500, but everything else, they're all below 500 except Kansas City and Detroit all the rest of the way.
Yeah, you got a load of games against Minnesota and Houston for starters, and the White Sox as well.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, and it's not 10 games to go; it's 40. So we've got we've got some time. We've got a full quarter of the season, but clock is ticking, and you're sitting there a game over 500, and I'm not saying that it can't happen because I agree that we've talked all for the last couple months about the schedule and the strength of schedule, and also the predominance of home games, and so I'm far from writing them off. At the same time, though, I'm as far as the pitching goes and the starting pitching, I'm starting to project what this rotation might look like next year, and with another year of seasoning under the belts of Bauer and Salazar and Carrasco too. But boy, if Carrasco can have his situation straightened around, and if he can become a reliable starting pitcher, boy, that just brightens the prospects immensely for this team for next year and beyond that.
See, with him, I'm still holding my breath because, Mike and I were talking about this the other day, and he goes, yeah, but how many times have we said that, this looks like the Carlos Carrasco we've been waiting for? And I'm with him on that point. I get it, because I was saying, hey, if this guy had started the season like this, like what everybody thought of, then maybe the Indians are in a more favorable position today, because that would have been another starting spot that would have been solidified. But, I mean, they've had 2 or 3 other times this year where they've had a good week like this, but I go to the last 6 games and what I mentioned earlier, and looking ahead, not just for the rest of this season, but like you said, looking at next year, if these guys continue to grow together. I mean, a 1 flat ERA the last 6 games, the last time and a half through this thing, 46 Ks, 6 walks. I mean, that's Kluber, Carrasco, Bauer, Tomlin, and Salazar. That's not even throwing House in there. That's those guys. So I'm with you. I mean, obviously Kluber, Bauer, and Salazar are going to be your 3 kind of locked-in guys heading into next season. And if Carrasco can step up, if what we're seeing, and maybe it took that, wow, this is the last shot this team's going to give me thing to wake him up, I don't know. Dude, 2 weeks from now, we could be going, oh, that's why Carlos Carrasco didn't get the job coming down the season, But, man, Mike Brandenberry must be listening to us along. He actually just texted me as we go, and he said, being content with Carrasco, Kluber, Bauer, and Salazar for a top 4 rotation for next year is the same logic that let Ubaldo and Casimir leave town to be replaced by Salazar and internal options. It didn't work this year, and it won't work next year. So, kind of.
Oh, I hear you. And as I mentioned, and Mike is absolutely right. As I said, we're going to add pitching. They're going to look for veteran pitching. They're going to, and I'm sure they're kicking themselves for not sweetening the pot for Scott Casimir, unless he just let it be known right from the get-go that he wasn't interested in playing here any longer. That's a mistake of judgment by this front office. And yeah, like I said, we're going to have to add pitching to that. That's not a sufficient rotation, but it's the youth of it, the stuff that's in that foursome, and the promise, for the future of those 4 guys, hopefully, is, something that can be a cause of optimism for Tri fans. That's all I'm saying. By no means is that sufficient to look at next season as these are our guys.
No, and you're right, and I agree with both of you guys, too. I mean, he's right, too, because I know that was the exact, almost those same names, just switch the order around, Maybe one guy was more Carrasco than Tomlin, maybe another guy was more this guy than that guy, but for the most part, it was they've got these 4 or 5 guys that are going to fill the rotation, and as we've seen, the problem with depending on the youth is that you get the inconsistency that comes with it, and we've seen that this year. You get that tantalizing good one. I mean, even Josh Tomlin, in the middle of his muck, you'll get that game where you go, man, he goes out there and throws a complete game, 1 hitter, just misses a perfect game, by a second, and it's tantalizing, but it's inconsistent.
Yeah, you're right, but we actually weren't talking about those same 4 guys a year ago, because we were talking about Masterson and McAllister and Tomlin as part of this rotation too. So 3 guys that we're no longer even having conversations about, really. Who knows what McAllister's going to ever give you going forward, but we shall see. Anyway, it's going to be good to be playing significant, meaningful games in September. Of that, we can be sure. Whether the Indians can close the gap on the 2 teams ahead of them, actually the 4 or 5 teams ahead of them in the wild card. I think it's 4 as we speak. That are ahead of them. That's another issue. You got to climb over a lot of different teams to get there. It's not just a matter of beating that Seattle or beating out New York or whatever. It's now you're looking at beating jumping the Tigers or jumping the Royals, one or the other. And because the Angels and A's are both in the playoffs, we can safely say that. I think that one of those wild card teams is going to be whoever doesn't win the West.
Absolutely. And, that's your number.
So
you're
looking at trying to jump over Tigers or Royals, and then also Yankees and Blue Jays and whoever else. So Mariners is what I was trying to think of as the other team that's ahead of them at present. But a lot of folks to climb over, but like you say, there's some factors working our way.
Well, yeah, and that's why I said, you've got to. And again, Mike joking with me this morning, and he texted me back. He goes, that wasn't particularly towards you, that last message he sent. He said, a lot of people have said exactly the same thing as you since Carrasco's last start the other day. So he wanted to make sure that you knew that wasn't particularly at you. But that's why I focus at these games. And I was joking earlier. He said, well, they're going to go 4-5 or 5-4 through these next 9. And if that's the case, then they're going to be sitting right where they're at. I say, for that series coming up with Kansas City and Detroit to mean something at the end of the month and beginning of September, you've got to win 6 or 7 of these 9. If you do that, you put yourself, I think, in good position, because I think if you do that, you're probably neck and neck with Detroit in the wild card. Most likely, if you were to win 6 of 9, 7 of 9 here, you'll clear up that game and a half between you, Toronto, and the Yankees.